Just quickly review our agenda here. I want to talk about just a little bit of commentary about best practices integration in general. As you may have noticed in my logo, that's really one of the themes of my business. I'm a strong believer that there is no single way that is the best way to solve every problem, that really most real-world problems need a combination of ideas and methods that come from different sources, and it really is very practical to combine ideas from different sources. And so that's going to be one of the focal points, or a major focal point of this webinar and many of the webinars that I do. I'm then going to talk a little bit about Lean Six Sigma on the assumption that not necessarily all of you are familiar with what it is, so I'm going to give a short overview of it. Similarly, I'm going to give a short overview of CMMI in case any of you may not be familiar with that. And then I'm going to really spend more time on a deployment comparison, kind of comparing, contrasting Lean Six Sigma and CMMI to take a little bit of a look at how they're similar and how they're different and how they might complement one another. Then we'll get into a little bit of an overview of Agile, and we'll talk about connections between Lean Six Sigma, Agile, and CMMI, again, comparing, contrasting, exploring how they might be combined and ways in which they might be synergistic, and for that matter, some ways in which they might be kind of mutually exclusive or contradictory. I'll talk briefly about a little case study, and then we'll have some discussion and Q&A time at the end of the webinar.
Hi, Gary. Sorry to interrupt. We are getting a lot of feedback about the volume. If there is any way to turn up the volume, that would be helpful. If not, we'll make the best of it.
Okay, I will see what I can do here. Let me see if I can accomplish that. Let's see, did that go up any?
It does for me.
Huh?
It does for me. We'll run with that.
Okay, well, let me continue then. Hopefully it's better now. All right, so Lean Six Sigma, CMMI, PMBoK, ITIL, many different ideas out there about how to improve things in general. And so there's a whole set of standards and best practices that I would refer to as being compliance-based. And I would include ITIL, CMMI, PMBoK, ISO, and some other standards in that category. Basically, these standards and best practice ideas define a set of things that describe what you should do. They identify specific process areas, and they identify best practice attributes of those processes. Now, I would contrast that somewhat in this context to Lean Six Sigma, where the emphasis is really on performance. So I would call that a performance-based method or standard or approach. And it has specific guidelines about how to deploy it, and also has actually two different sort of what you might call methodologies. One is called DMAIC, which stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. DMAIC in general is that part of Six Sigma that is used to improve a process that already exists. There's another branch I won't go into today. It's called Design for Six Sigma, and that more generally would be used to create a new process, something that did not previously exist. So you could say that Lean Six Sigma is focused on how to go about improving things, and is also focused on why you would go about improving things. So it focuses very much on benefits. And so measurement is a very central part of Lean Six Sigma. Okay, Lean Six Sigma overview. I think it's fair to say that Lean Six Sigma is a well-proven methodology for quantitative improvement of any kind of a product for a service. It's been widely applied in virtually every industry sector, in manufacturing, in what is called transactional areas, which you could say are the administrative aspects of the business, the non-manufacturing portions of the business. And it's also been applied fairly widely in the last roughly 8 or 10 years in software and IT organizations, or at least some of them. Probably penetration there is somewhat less than it is in the other areas, but still fairly broad even there. So a few central ideas of Lean Six Sigma. First, a great deal of emphasis on management by fact, the idea that opinion takes a back seat. So we're not going to make decisions based on the boss's opinion necessarily, but we're going to focus on facts and data to make our decisions on objective grounds. Another central idea in Lean Six Sigma is this deceptively simple equation. Y equals a function of a series of X's. And the idea here is that Y is a general representation of an outcome. And the X's are representation of factors that influence that outcome. You might say the root causes. So Six Sigma is about understanding what the factors are that drive an outcome, any outcome of interest, software quality, productivity, cycle time, any outcome. And the outcome is going to be measured, so it's going to be quantified. But in general, outcomes aren't directly controllable. They are, however, indirectly controllable by influencing the factors that drive those outcomes. So, you know, we might understand that there are a lot of factors that drive software quality, delivered quality. If delivered quality was the Y of interest, then X's that would be influential on that would certainly include defect containment or defect detection practices. So the number of inspections, formal software inspections that we do, and when we do them, and which work products they apply to, is certainly a considerably important factor. The effectiveness of our testing is certainly a considerably important factor. We know that we can control, influence the application of inspections. We know that we can influence their effectiveness by following a set of well-understood rules. And those things can be monitored, measured, and managed quantitatively. Six Sigma is also a set of formal methodologies, sometimes referred to as roadmaps. They are applicable to any kind of a software development model. They're completely neutral as to whether you're doing Agile or Waterfall or Iterative or Rough or whatever you might be doing. These improvement methodologies are applicable to any and all of those different approaches to development. The methodologies that are part of Six Sigma include a method for deploying Six Sigma and for selecting projects that will be the target or the focus of Six Sigma activity. There's also, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's a design for Lean Six Sigma roadmap. Very frequently, one of the more commonly referred to is called DAMADV, D-A-M-A-D-V. There are several others. We're not going to go into that much today. There's also a far more commonly used portion of Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma, is focused on improving processes that already